Etiquette in a new situation can be so strange and confusing. Hey everyone, it's Emily, the Career Catalyst. I've learned to deal with new situations, new etiquette, because I actually lived in Japan for several years after college. This was obviously really a formative period for me, but one of the main things I learned was that there were etiquette leaders that I could follow. And this is a particularly unique situation, of course, because I was in a country that I didn't fully understand at the time. I had studied it in college, but studying a place and living in it are obviously very different. And so what I did was I just kind of found people who made sense to mimic. Now, initially I made some missteps. The first people I decided to follow at social gatherings were the young men in my particular group. And that was primarily because I knew them best. I taught with particularly one of them. And I just thought he was a really nice person. I thought, well, he's a great person to follow. He's my age, whatever, I'll do what he does. And what that resulted in was me getting kind of unfortunately drunk, which was only a problem the next day, because typically in Japan, being drunk in a social situation is a outlet for kind of the pent up stress of the day or the week or whatever. And so was kind of a mistake to follow the men. And I did that a few times before I figured out where I was misstepping. And so what's really tricky about social events in Japan is that you've usually got a little sort of juice glass size cup for your beer. And if you're sort of a guest of honor, people will keep it filled just all the time. And so you don't really have a very good way to gauge what you're drinking. And it looks small, so you sort of trick yourself into thinking it's not very much until the next day when you wake up and there's, a small army trying to get outside of your head. So after a few times of this, I kind of cottoned onto it. I know, what am I doing wrong? I'm following the men. I'm going to try following the young women. Now, the older women, I guess it's kind of like a prestige thing, had gotten to the point where they could just hang out and do what the men did. But the young women, wisely, were getting up and serving the beer to everybody else. So they weren't just sitting there with their full glasses, although their glasses were full. They had just big bottles of beer, and they were just walking around the room making sure everybody else's glass was full. And so I started doing that. And from then on, I did not wake up with surprise nasty hangovers. So that was my kind of aha moment there. And the thing is, I've used this same tactic in the rest of my life. When I'm in a situation where I don't completely know what I'm supposed to be doing or sort of what the etiquette rules are, I just figured out that I would follow someone who in some way represents me or what I'm hoping to sort of become in the situation. So I will sometimes follow people who are a little bit more experienced than me. Sometimes I will follow the people who appear to be really elegant, presenting themselves really well. Sometimes I want to follow the people who are fun. But in situations where I really kind of don't know some of the specifics of the etiquette, what I've just tended to do is just find that person. It doesn't have to be weird or creepy. Look around the room, see who's there. If they're people you know, you may well decide beforehand. But if it's a group of strangers, which is usually when it feels a little bit more socially awkward, glance around, find someone who seems to be kind of doing how you would like to, present yourself in the world, presenting in that way. And just observe them for a while, not in a creepy way. You're not like staring creepily or robotically doing every single thing that they do, but you sort of keep an eye on them. And you'll get some tips like potentially some ways to introduce yourself to new people, or if there are very specific rules like when it's appropriate to go get in line for the food or whatever it is, right? And so just keep observing people. And the thing is, this can also serve you really well in a new job. Often in these situations, you won't entirely know what is expected of you just in terms of etiquette. You probably know the work that's expected of you, but how do you fit in with the bigger group? And so what you can do with this is the same thing. Find a person or two who really seem to have it going on and sort of lightly, gently mimic those people. Obviously, again, don't do every single thing they do. But for example, you might spend your first staff meeting after you've done the inevitable introduction thing, just observing. How do people communicate with each other? Is there a very clear seniority structure in this staff meeting? Do people raise their hands before they speak? Do people have side conversations? Is that allowed? Those kinds of things. You'll also get some tips about what not to do. I used to have this boss who was constantly on her phone in the staff meetings. It was really distracting. Everyone else would be talking and she'd just be like typing away at it, and it was weird and horrible. So don't do that. One of the things you're also looking for in these situations are negative examples, and that's obviously not who you want to be. So try it on, see what it does for you. I have found it really helpful in many, many aspects of my life, from extremely formal meals all the way through to work situations. So I hope that's helpful for you. And I'd love to hear your stories of some things where you kind of made a misstep or have figured out how to deal with a situation that was new to you. So let me know what you think. Pop that in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next week.